Let me ask you a question. Have you ever felt like doing your taxes was designed to make you feel dumb on purpose? You're not alone. Today, we're diving into a topic that affects almost everyone, income tax. We'll explore its history, how it's evolved, why the U.S. tax code is so complicated, how it compares to other countries. Plus, we'll touch on how the wealthy use it to their advantage, legally avoiding taxes, how they help build the system that way, and why the U.S. tax code is one of the most confusing in the world. Spoiler alert, it's not by accident. Let's get into it. In simple terms, income tax is a tax that governments impose on income generated by businesses and individuals within their jurisdiction. The concept of taxing income dates back to ancient civilizations. Let's start with the history. Income tax as we know it is relatively modern, but the idea of taxing people's earnings goes back centuries. In ancient civilizations like Egypt and Rome, governments collected taxes, but they were usually based on land, crops, or trade, not income. Let's fast forward to the 19th century, and things started to change. The United Kingdom introduced a temporary income tax in 1799 to fund the Napoleonic Wars. It was progressive, meaning higher earnings paid more, but it wasn't permanent until 1842. This set the stage for modern income tax systems. In the United States, income tax first popped up during the Civil War in 1861 to fund the Union effort. It was repealed after the war, but the idea stuck. The 16th Amendment in 1913 made federal income tax permanent, and that's when things really took off. At first, it only applied to the wealthiest Americans, but over time, especially during World War I, the Great Depression, and World War II, taxes expanded to include more people and more income types. By the 1940s, payroll withholding became the norm. Your taxes started coming out of your paycheck before you even saw the money. And just like that, income tax became a permanent part of everyday American life. If you've ever tried to file your taxes in the United States, you know it's a headache. The tax code is intentionally complex, and I don't say that lightly. Part of it is because tax laws are shaped by lobbying and special interests. Wealthy individuals and corporations often push for loopholes, deductions, and credits that benefit them. For example, deductions for private jets or offshore accounts aren't exactly helping the average Joe. Take capital gains tax in the United States. Income from investments like stocks is taxed at a lower rate than regular wages. So a billionaire who makes money from investments pays a lower tax rate than a teacher or nurse. Sound fair? Not really. Then there's the use of tax havens. The ultra-wealthy stash money in places like the Cayman Islands to avoid taxes. A 2021 report estimated that the richest 1% hide about 20% of their income offshore. It's not just loopholes, it's a whole playbook. One trick is using trust and shell companies to hide assets. Another is charitable donations that come with tax breaks, but sometimes benefit the donor more than the cause. The buy, borrow, die strategy is a favorite. Here's how it works. The ultra-rich buy assets like stocks. They borrow against them to fund their lifestyle and never sell, so they avoid capital gains tax. When they die, their heirs inherit the assets with a stepped-up basis, wiping out the tax bill. Genius, right? But it's not available to most of us. The IRS tries to crack down, but it's outgunned. In 2022, only about 1% of millionaires were audited, compared to 7% of low-income earners. The system often punishes the poor while letting the rich slide. The tax code is complicated for you, but for the wealthy, it's a treasure map. They don't earn most of their money through regular jobs like you and me. Instead, they focus on things like capital gains, taxed at lower rates than income, real estate, where depreciation can offset gains, offshore accounts and trusts, foundations and donor-advised funds, tax write-offs disguised as charity. They hire teams of lawyers and accountants to help them legally avoid paying taxes, using rules that they, quite frankly, helped write. Warren Buffett even admitted, "I pay a lower tax rate than my secretary." Let that sink in. So why is it like this? Because complexity equals control. If you don't understand the rules, you can't play the game. And if you can't play the game, you can't win. Tax software companies, financial institutions, and lobbyists all profit from keeping the system broken and confusing. And that confusion creates fear. It keeps people from asking questions, challenging the rules, or noticing that the rich are playing by an entirely different set of them. In most countries, tax is a chore. In the US, it's a business. For regular folks, the complexity means hours spent on tax prep or paying hundreds to a professional. The average American spends about 13 hours and $500 just to file their taxes. Compare that to countries like Sweden, where taxes are filed automatically in minutes. So how does the US system stack up globally? Let's look at a few other countries. Income tax systems vary widely, but most developed nations have simpler and more transparent systems. In the United States, the top federal income tax rate is 37% for incomes over about $600,000. Add state taxes and it can hit 50% in places like California. In contrast, countries like Germany and France have top rates around 45%, but they often include healthcare and other benefits. Sweden's top rate is around 57%, but citizens get free healthcare, education, and generous parental leave. In the United States, you're on your own for a lot of that. So the lower rate doesn't always mean more in your pocket. Some countries like Estonia use a flat tax. Everyone pays the same rate, like 20%. It's simple. The big difference is complexity. In places like Australia or Canada, tax filing is straightforward, and the government often pre-fills your forms. In the United States, the IRS could do this, but doesn't, partially because tax prep companies like TurboTax lobby against it. In Canada, the tax system is progressive, like the US, but it's generally simpler. Most people file in one sitting and with fewer deductions and gimmicks. And yes, they pay more in taxes, but they also get universal health care and strong social safety nets in return. In the United Kingdom, the government uses a pay-as-you-earn system. Employers handle most of the taxes, and people rarely have to file a return unless they're self-employed or have complex income. Countries like Sweden and Norway, taxes are high, but filing is easy. Most people get a pre-filled return from the government and just click confirm. Now compare that to the United States, a tax code that's over 70,000 pages long, riddled with loopholes and obscure deductions and contradictory language. It's basically a full-time job to understand it. Companies like Intuit, TurboTax, spend millions each year to make sure you stay confused and keep paying for help. So how has income tax evolved? In the early 20th century, tax rates were low. Think 1 to 7% for the wealthiest. But during World War I and World War II, rates skyrocketed. By the 1940s, the top U.S. tax rate was over 90% for the ultra-rich. After World War II, income tax became a key tool for governments to fund public services like infrastructure, healthcare, and education. But as economies grew, so did the complexity of tax systems. In the United States, the tax code ballooned from a few pages to tens of thousands. Today, it's over 70,000 pages long. So what's the takeaway? Income tax is a cornerstone of modern economies. But in the US, it's a tangled mess that often favors the wealthy. Other countries show there's a better way. Simpler, fair systems that don't leave you pulling your hair out. So what do? First, educate yourself. Second, ask better questions. And third, stop assuming that this is just the way it has to be. The tax system is complex by design, but the more we understand it, the less power it has over us. If you learned something new today, hit that like button, drop a comment with your worst tax experience, and hit that subscribe button below for more videos that help you navigate life, money, and everything in between. Catch you on the next one.